All right, so we are on Lama Gimel Lamed Aleph with my upside down computer. I like to find backwards answers, why solve the problem when you can just get around the problem? I put it random back up on an upside down computer. Okay. Let's try it. Okay, so we are on Lama Gimel Lamed Aleph, about 10 lines from the top. Two dots said Meitzikun Olam. So we're really beginning back to our mission here. So our mission had said that Rabbi Gamliel Hazake made a new decree that even though it used to be the law should be by technical rules that if the husband sends a get to his wife, he's able to then go gather together a Betin, which we'll talk about in a minute what that means, and cancel out the get. But Rabbi Gamliel made a decree that no, you have to go to the messenger himself who you sent. You got to go and round him up to tell him that you're canceling out the get. And we're not going to explain why and all the rules of that takana. So Mar said, what was this big tikkun olam? What was this big fixing? What was the problem that Rabbi Gamliel is trying to solve here? So Rish Lakish Amr, Nipnei takanos agunos. Sorry, skip the line. Rabbi Yochanan Amr Nipnei takanos mamzerin. Rabbi Yochanan says that the big thing they're trying to fix is avoid a problem of mamzer. Okay, they didn't want to create illegitimate children, and we want to avoid that, obviously. Rish Lakish Amr Nipnei takanos agunos. And Rish Lakish says, no, the problem we're trying to solve is we don't want to have agunos. We want to have women who are usually we use the word agunos to discuss a woman who should be able to be remarried, but she has a technical thing holding her back. And it's kind of, Tosa says it's a little different over here. So agunos means we want to ensure that women will be able to be remarried and not stuck in a situation where they are kind of in limbo. So Gemara explains what both of those mean. When Rabbi Yochanan says the problem was that there were going to be these mamzerim, illegitimate children, Sabla Rav Nachman. He's holding like Rav Nachman that was actually mentioned in the previous Amud. The Amr Bipnei Shnayim. According to Rav Nachman, in the original set of rules before Rabbi Gamliel, a husband could write a get, send a get, gather two people, and cancel out the get with those two people. So according to Rav Nachman, that you cancel in front of two people, you have a problem. Beitrei les lakala. In general, we say if you just tell two people, the news isn't for sure going to spread. When you have two people, it doesn't for sure create, it's a public word, everybody knows about it. The rule in halacha in a few different areas, in Lashon Hara and Balabasa comes up a few times, is when you have a group of three, okay, it's out. You have a group of two, it might spread, it might not spread. So Rabbi Yochanan and Rav Nachman, who say that you used to be able to cancel out the get in front of two people, well, the word might not spread that you canceled out the get. If that's the case, he lo shema, the wife might not have heard the get was canceled. Below yada, she doesn't know that it's actually no longer a get. Also mitzvah, she's going to go remarried, assuming that she is divorced. And really, halachically, she's not divorced. Okay, that's a pretty heavy issue. That's going to create illegitimate children, and that's why Rabbi Gamliel wanted to cancel out any ability of nullifying the get without telling the shliach directly. Reish Lakish Amar b'nei takanas agunos. But Reish Lakish, he says the problem was not about the mamzer, and the problem was we don't want the woman to be stuck and not being able to be married. Sabalak Rav Sheshes. He holds like Rav Sheshes, Amar b'nei Gimel. Rav Sheshes in the previous Amud said that in the original world, you had to gather a real court of three men in order to cancel the get. So once you do that, and you gather three people and you make a full proclamation to cancel the get, that's going to hit the news. And therefore, Shama v'yad mitzvah, most likely the wife would realize, she would hear the reports and not remarry. And therefore, there wasn't really ever a problem of mamzer. We weren't really worried that she's actually going to remarry when she's not supposed to. However, it's a kind of agunos to the ika. But there was a problem of agunos. And Rashi explains what that means is that here, if it's so simple for a husband to cancel out a get, that he can send the get with the shliach and just grab 3 people, sit down and cancel it out, then it's too likely that he'll get to the point where they should be divorced, send the get, and then never mind, just cancel it out. So we want to make it that it's a more complex process to cancel it, so that way when he has already decided to divorce her, he has to go find that, he has to kind of, if he's living in different cities, he sends the shliach to the city, he has to go travel after her. He can't stay in the city to do it. He really has to put in that effort. And that way we will avoid what Gemara refers to as a gunos, a woman who should really be remarried, except that they would be stuck and not be remarried. Okay, that's part 1. Part 2 is going to be kind of the main topic for the rest of the Amud here. We're going to see about 3 different machlokim, 4 different machlokim between Rabbi Doniel and Shimon Gamliel, and this is definitely the major one here. So the Tractate teaches us, Batlo Mivutal. Rabbi. What if after Rabbi Gamliel's decree, Rabbi Gamliel Zaken was a earlier generation than Rabbi Yehuda Nasi. Rabbi Gamliel Zaken says you have to go to the shliach to cancel it out. What if you didn't follow the rules? What if you went to a bezdin, like the rules used to be, and you canceled out the get? So Rabbi says, Mivutal, the fact is, you canceled it. All Rabbi Gamliel said is you shouldn't do that, right? You're not supposed to go to a court. You're supposed to go to the actual messenger. But ultimately, if you did go to a bezdin, would it work? Yeah, it will end up canceling out the get, because that's the law. The law is that if you go to a bezdin and cancel it, it's canceled. Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel Omer, Rabbi Shimon, who was from the Nasi Rabbi Gamliel family, Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel says, no, once Rabbi Gamliel made this decree, the husband can no longer cancel the get, nor can he add any extra conditions or anything. You can't change it at all. Shem Kain, because if he could cancel it, ma koach bezdin yafa. Loosely translated as, what power are you giving to the court? If Rabbi Gamliel is trying to make a system, you have to go to the shliach. We got a problem. You got to go to the messenger to cancel it. Then if you could just cancel it in court, then his takana didn't really do anything. The Rabbanan can give such force to their decrees that they can make it that if you don't follow the decree, it doesn't even work. And this is a concept we're going to see a few times over here. The Gemara calls it ma koach bezdin yafa. What good is the power of court if you can, in essence, you're supposed to listen to them, but if you don't listen to them, it works. What you did works anyway. What teeth do bezdin have to their decrees? So we have a back and forth here, which comes up according to the side here 6 different times in Gemara. Very, very well-known back and forth. The Gemara says, "Mi ika midi." Is there anything? Did mi d'oraisa batal gita? By the laws of the Torah, if the husband sends a get, then he goes to gather a bezdin to cancel it. By the laws of the Torah, that get is totally nullified. There's no force to it. And just because you want the court to have power, the Rabbanan are going to permit a married woman to go and remarry. You kind of have to look at it from 2 different glasses. They have a few examples of this in halacha. Listen, if you want to follow the technical rules of the Torah, once you went to the court and said, this gets no good, it gets no good. General rule is the Rabbanan have a lot of power, but they can't say you're allowed to eat pig. Right? The Rabbanan cannot override anything that the Torah prohibits. They can add extra fences, stay further away from things, meat and milk, stay extra further away from what the Torah prohibits of meat and milk. They can create new mitzvahs, Hanukkah and Purim, under certain circumstances, they can create extra mitzvahs. But they can never go and say, yeah, you are allowed to do this on Shabbos. You are allowed to go eat pig. So if by the Torah rules, this get document is null, then how could the Rabbanan say, oh yeah, she is allowed to be remarried? It's okay. We want you to only cancel it out by going to the messenger himself. And therefore, if you don't, it's as if you didn't cancel it out. Where did the Rabbanan get the strength to do that? The Gemara answers, there is such a thing. The rule is, Kol de Mekadesh Adaita de Rabbanan Mekadesh. Whenever somebody gets married, their marriage is on condition that it follows the rules of the Rabbanan. And therefore, if you're not following the Rabbanan's rules, the Rabbanan can totally undo that marriage retroactively from the start. Let's read one more step before we explain it. The Gemara says, Amalei Ravina the Ravashi, Ravina said to Ravashi, Tainach, I can understand that the Kodesh Bekaspa. We know from the first Mishnah and Kedushin, there's three different ways a marriage could be created. The most classic way, marriage is made with kesef, with giving over something of monetary value to the woman, right? Giving over a ring is the most classic way. So if the husband gives a ring and says, "Oh, yeah, Mikadesh Asli," so I see how the rules could be in place. And Rashi explains, we know the Rabbanan have a lot of power when it comes to monetary items. Say the rule, hefker based on hefker. The Rabbanan can change ownership, and they can change ownership retroactively too. If a husband gives something to a wife that's not his, they're not married. If he steals something, right, if he steals something, give it to her, then you have to give her your stuff. So the Rabbanan can say, that ring that you gave her 10 years ago, that wasn't yours. And if it wasn't yours, you were never married. And therefore now she can be married, because we're not really saying the divorce document is good. We're kind of pulling the rug out from underneath you and saying the whole marriage doesn't work in the first place. But Kaddish Bibia Ma'ikal Meimar. But marriage doesn't have to be done through kasef. You can also do marriage just by having acting as a husband and wife. Marital relations itself is a form of creating a marriage. So there, what techniques, so to speak, do the Rabbanan have to cancel out this marriage? This is a big debate in Rashi and Tosfos, exactly what point the Gemara is asking on. But certainly you don't have that tool of the call hefker based on hefker, because there was no monetary system that created the marriage. So our answer is Shavi Rabbanan lebilaso bilasnos. The Gemara answers the Rabbanan aren't concerned, even without that tool of hefker based on hefker. The Rabbanan can create that entire relations. No, it's not a marriage relation. So Tosfos famously over here quotes that this is the reason why when you give a ring, you say Hare at Mikadesh Asli, V'tabazu Kedas Moshe v'Yisrael. Those three words, Kedas Moshe v'Yisrael, is it's basically like you're saying, I'm marrying you on condition that the Rabbanan approve. And therefore, if you do something later, in this case, you sent a get with a shliach and then went to cancel it out in front of the court, that's something the Rabbanan don't approve. Boom, it's like you were never married, and the last however many years you're married don't count as marriage. And you're right, if they had relations during that time, it's as if they were married. And the Rabbanan are willing to do that in order to enforce their system. And Tosfos discusses a lot of different complications. If you had somebody who committed adultery, and then something like this happens, as if they never were married, and therefore it's not even adultery. You know, there's a lot of different pieces that go to this system here. But
mamzerim was certainly not mamzerim.
But right, the Tosfos can go through different potential ways. Would there be a way that somebody could cancel out a mamzer by making something happen that their bottom don't approve of, and therefore, like, there's never way? Is that way? Ultimately, I think the answer is no, according to almost everybody. But there might be somebody who holds that there's a way to sort of, right, exactly. Sort of. The other thing that comes up sometimes is in a guna situation. You know, is there ever a place where we could say their bottom disapproved, and therefore it's like they were never married? Is there ever? It's not so simple. But this is one of the many sources of this concept.
Rabbi, could you please tell me where on the page we are? We're on 32b right now, or 33a?
On 33a, 5 lines from the bottom. We just got up to 2 dots there, Tana Rabbanan. So that is
33a, you say?
33a, 5 lines from the
got it.
bottom.
Oh, yeah, I see it.
Okay. So we just brought in one machlokus between Rabbi and Rishon ben Gamliel, which was if you do cancel out the messenger or the get in front of court after Rabbi Gamliel's decree, is it actually canceled? That's Rabbi's opinion. Sorry, yeah, that's Rabbi's opinion. Or do we say no? Once the takana of Rabbi Gamliel is in effect, you can no longer cancel it. That's Rishon ben Gamliel's opinion. So we're going to go through a few new machlokus and they're somewhat connected. We went in a new brisa. Amar la Sarah, kiss v'ged. We have a few variations of this case. If you had a group of people, a group of 10 people, and you said to all 10 of them, hey, can you write a get for my wife? So the halacha is that when you say that, any of them could write it, any two of them could sign, and any of them could deliver it. So you're saying, hey, any of you, group of 10, I'm making all of you messengers. I don't need all of you to do it. It's not. We'll talk about that case a little bit later. But any of them have the power to do so. Now, again, dealing with the I don't know how we'd call it, fickle-minded, I guess. He changes his mind a few days later. He doesn't need to gather all 10 together to cancel out the get. He can go over to messenger number 1, messenger number 2 from that group, cancel out number 1, number 2, number 3, and those 3 are canceled, according to Rabbi. You cannot cancel out the get unless you get all 10 together. You need to reassemble that full group of 10, and otherwise your original directive still applies. So let's see if we can try to explain this machlokas. We're going to go to an idea called Eida Shebatla Miksasa Batla Kula Kamiflagi. There's a few examples of this rule. If you have a testimony, or in our case, a group of witnesses, more than a testimony itself, if part of a group has been canceled out, has the entire group been canceled out or not? Is it all or nothing? Rabbi Savar, Eida Shebatla Miksasa, turning to 33b, Lo Batla Kula. Rabbi holds that if you have a whole group and you canceled out half the group, the rest is still good. Lo balakul, you haven't destroyed the rest of the group. So if you cancel out messengers 1 and 2, 3 provides 7 are totally good. So Yazli Hanach, if the other messengers go, Kaspi, Viavi, write the get and give it, let them do that. What's the problem? According to Rabbi, everything's great. You told 10 people I want you to have messengers. You cancel that 1 and cancel the other 2. Okay, so they won't do it. And if 3 and 4 do it, that's fine. Now she's divorced. What's the problem? Rabbi Shimon Gamliel Saber, Eidu Shebat L'Miksasa Bat L'Kula. Rabbi Shimon Gamliel says, though, a group is a group, one for all for one. Once a few of the messengers have been canceled out, the entire group is destroyed. And therefore, Hanach Lo Yadu Ve'azli V'Katsu V'Yavi. So if you cancel out 1 or 2, then numbers 3 through 10 are all no longer valid. But they never heard it from the husband. Therefore, they won't realize. And numbers 3 and 4 will go and write the get and give it to her. The Shari and therefore we have a potential of allowing this woman to be married when she doesn't deserve to be married. And therefore, you have to gather all 10. Since whenever you cancel 1, you cancel them all. That's exactly the thing we don't want. We don't want messengers to be canceled unless they're there and present at that cancellation. However, there's a second version of what Rishon Gamliel's opinion is. The other option for Rishon Gamliel is he might agree with Rabbi that actually, no, the group does not travel together. When you cancel out witnesses 1 or 2, the other witnesses, the other messengers, are still good to go. The time of the Rishon Gamliel, the reason over here is Kesavar Milsa de Misav de Bape Asara. Anything which is done in front of 10, Sricha Be'astar the Mishlacha. There's a rule. There are a few other examples where this rule might come up. If something is done in the power, according to this opinion, I think we specifically are looking at 10, if I understand correctly. If you gathered 10 people, what we refer to as a minion, and you did something in it has an additional power of being done in the face of the public, and it would require another minion to cancel it out. So according to the second, there's a big difference between these two explanations. According to the second explanation of Rabbi Gamliel, when you gather man one or two and say, actually, I don't want you to send the get, it has no validity, because if you made a messenger or 10 messengers in the presence of a minion, you need a minion to cancel it out. The other thing, Nadarim wasn't that long ago, but by Nadarim, we have this idea a little bit also that if a person makes a oath in the presence of the public, he needs to cancel it out in the presence of the public. It has a certain higher, almost like power to it, and you need that same public presence to cancel it out.
So using this argument, if there were 9 people, we could cancel.
If I understood correctly, I didn't double check this morning, but if I understood correctly, exactly. If you did it with 9 people, according to this argument, then sure, you could cancel out 1 or 2 of them. Both Rabbi and Shimon Gamliel would agree. Exactly. Specifically in front of 10. And the other big difference is, according to this argument, if you cancel out 2 of the 10, those 2 could go ahead and give it. So your canceling did nothing, and therefore they're still totally valid messengers. So the Gemara is going to try to prove a little bit which of these 2 explanations is correct. We're going to start with a similar case that we asked as a question. Kulchem Mao. What if you said to 10 people, I want all 10 of you to write and deliver a get? Now, if you say the word kulchem, you say all of them, then unlike the normal case where you said that, now you need all of them to sign on this document. All 10 are required to be. You can make up whatever rules you want. You can require 15 witnesses if you want. So if you said the word kulchem, I need all of you to be part of this get. So time to Rishon Gamliel, if the reason for Rishon Gamliel is Mishum de Kasaba Eid Shabbat Musasa Kula, by the first explanation we gave, that Rishon Gamliel's opinion is once you cancel out some, you cancel out the rest, they won't realize and go ahead and give it. Well, Hani, in this case, given them kulchem, if you say I need all of you on document, what must the cost of reality? There's nothing really to worry about. If you say you need all of them in the document, and you cancel out 1 and 2 directly to them, well, then 1 and 2 aren't going to sign, and the document's never going to become valid. The whole problem we had before when you didn't say all of them was that if you say, I want the 10 of you to give the get, any 2 could do it. And if you cancel 1 and 2, well, if that canceled out the whole group, then Mr. 3 and Mr. 4 would go and give it and not realize that it's been canceled out. But if you say all of you, I need all of you on it, well, once you cancel out 2 of them, they're not going to sign anymore because they heard it from you, and that get's never going to become valid. However, Odilma, or perhaps time to Rishon Gamliel, perhaps the reason for Rishon Gamliel is Mishum Tikasavar called Milsa de Misabde Babi Be'asara. Anything that was done in front of a group of 10, Srichi Be'asara, the Mishnah requires a new group of 10 or the same group of 10 to cancel it out. So Hilchach, by that reason, I feel kulchem nami. It doesn't matter if you said all of you or not all of you. By that reason, if you did it in front of 10, you need all 10 to cancel it. If you just gathered 2 of them, there's no validity to your canceling. So it doesn't matter which set of directives you give to those 10, you would always need 10 to cancel it out. So Tashma, let's look at a proof, and this will be our 3rd variation in this case. Amar Lishnayim. What if you just said 2 people? Okay, so you took 2 people, a little more of a standard case. We'll see why in a second. And you said, Tanu get le'ishti. You wanted 2 people. You said, hey, Reuven and Shimon, I want you to give a get to my wife. In this case, similar to before, Rabbi holds you could cancel out 1 Reuven without telling Shimon, Shimon without telling Reuven. You can cancel out each one individually. Similar to before, Shimon Gamliel again says, no, you have to get both those 2 witnesses together. So now we have 2 very parallel arguments between Rabbi and Shimon Gamliel. The first is when he told 10 people. The second is when he told 2 people. In both situations, Rabbi holds that you cannot, let me clarify. By the group of 10, right, when you gathered 10 people, Rabbi said you could cancel out separate pieces of the group, cancel out piece 1 or piece 2. You don't need everybody together. And when it comes to two people, Rabbi, hold on, I think I said it clear the first time. Rabbi holds whether it's 10, whether it's 2, you're able to cancel out by one particular witness. You don't need to gather the whole group together. Aaron Shimon Gamliel holds whether it's 10, whether it's 2, you got to gather the same group that you spoke to originally. You got to bring them all together. Now, if it's 2, Gemara says, "V'hashnayim by 2, the kicholchem damu." When you made 2 people to write a get, you need 2 witnesses on a get. So by definition, when you said to 2 people, I want you to create this get for my wife, now it wasn't clear that was the case. We're going to change that in a second. But if you told 2 people, I want you to create a get and deliver it to my wife, they're both going to need to sign on it together. They're both going to need to be together because otherwise you're lacking your witnesses on the get. And still, Rabbi Shimon Gamliel is arguing with Rabbi and saying that you need both of them together, even though the fear of one doing without the other doesn't apply. You can't have one witness on a get. So this would seem to imply that Rabbi Shimon Gamliel's problem is you need the full power. If you did it in front of 10, you need 10 again. You did it in front of 2, you need 2 again. Not that he's worried that one person is going to deliver without the other, because by a group of 2, you wouldn't have that fear. But that's where we perhaps assumed a little too much about the case. So Amar Rashi says, if it was clear that this case was you were telling 2 people to write the get, so then you for sure need 2 people to do that. You needed 2 witnesses, as we've established. But the words of the case were you tell 2 people, give the get, and therefore it could be, here, what are we dealing with? Could be that all these witnesses are doing is just the delivering part. Very often, give a get, you're starting from scratch. And therefore, when I say give a get, I mean write, sign, deliver. But it could be the word give could just mean, here, I have the get, it's already been written, signed, taken care of. Here, go and deliver it. So if you're just saying deliver it, one can do that. You don't need to, as the first mission of Gittin said, you only need one person to be in the delivery in normal situations. And therefore, we would have the fear if you cancel that one and they're both canceled, the other guy would deliver the get when he's not supposed to. Hakinam Mistavra, Mar tries to say that our last option of the case is where you were just delivering it is actually more, fits better than the original option. Diktani Seifa, because the next case of that brisa says, Amar lezeh b'fnei atzmo lezeh b'fnei atzmo yachol levatel zeh shelo b'fnei zeh. Slight variation of our previous case of 2 witnesses. If the husband went to witness number 1, Reuben, and said, hey, give this get to my wife. Then he goes over to Shimon and says, hey, give this get to my wife. If he never appointed them together, he spoke to each one individually, then he can also cancel out each one individually. So, Iyam Bishlama makes sense if you want to say Be'edei Halacha. If the whole case is you have a fully signed, ready to go get, and you just need somebody to deliver it, Shapir, that case makes sense. I understand that you could go over to Reuben and say, hey, I have a perfect to get, can you give it to my wife? Then you go over to the next guy and you say, I have a good get. I already told somebody to give it, but if he doesn't do it, I also want you to be able to do it. So you're giving both the option. You don't really need 2, but you're giving both the option. Rashi explains. But if the case was you don't have any get in the first place, you go over to Reuben and say, hey, Reuben, I want you to write and sign on a get for my wife. And then you go to another guy, you say the same directions. Well, you need 2 witnesses to testify that you told them to write a get. And the rule is, Mimit Starfate, could these 2 guys combine? There's a rule, general rule of testimony, the machlokas we'll see in a second, is if you have 2 different people who want to testify together, they have to have seen the same thing together. And there's a lot of examples. What if one person was in one building, one person was across the street, they saw the same event, does it count? Over here, first he goes to Reuven and says, hey, I want to write a get for my wife. Then he goes to Shimon, hey, I want to write a get for my wife. They can both say he wants to write a get, but they didn't see the same event together. They saw two different speeches to two different people, and therefore they wouldn't really count as witnesses. So therefore, the price seems to fit better with our second version, that the whole case is just, I want you to deliver the get. You're not really using witnesses. I want you to deliver. I want you to deliver. Sure, that would be a perfectly good directive. Okay, so the Gemara concludes, no, Dilma Kirushu ben Karfas Virle. Gemara concludes, it's the end of that topic, that it's actually not such a conclusive proof, because there is an opinion in the time of Rishu ben Karcha, who says that you don't need to see the same events. It comes up for lending money, it's a somewhat similar thing. If one witness says, I saw him lend $100 on Sunday, another witness says, I know on Monday he said, oh yeah, I owe you money. I owe you $100. So according to Rishu ben Karcha, they might be able to combine, even though they're referring to different events, different times, but since the goal of the two testimonies is the same, there's at least more potential they could combine. So over here they could combine, and therefore we have no clue to prove one way or the other, and that ends that back and forth. Okay, so we're about more than halfway through the page here. Let's see if we can get a little close to the bottom. Okay, next now we're going to shift into the final halacha about this machlokas. So Amar Shmuel bar Yehuda, Shmuel bar Yehuda says, Shmas minei der Abba Tarti. I heard two halachas from Reb Abba, one of the great earlier Amoraim. I heard him say about one of these machloksim, the halachas like Rebbe, and about the other, the halachas like Rishon ben Gamliel. That's what I heard him say. But I didn't hear, or I don't remember which is which. I know about one of these like Rebbe and the other one not, but I don't know which way it is. So Amar Rav Yosef says, let's see if we can figure out which is which. The Chiasa Rav Dimi came to Babel. Amar, and he said, there was a story where Rabbi Doniel himself followed the halacha of the Chachamim, and this is actually a slight different case. We'll talk about a little bit later. A slight different case where Bezdin made a takana that you should do something, and the guy went against that takana. And Rabbi said, okay, if he went against the takana, then okay, whatever he did ultimately has validity. Amar the fun of Rabbi Parta, Beno Shel Rabbi Lazar ben Parta, then Beno Shel Parta HaGadol. I don't know if there is putting anything down over there in this person. I'm not really familiar with this Tana. The Gemara describes him as Rabbi Parta, the son of Rabbi Lazar, who was the son of Parta, who was the grandson of Rabbi Parta HaGadol. So you had something like 3 generations of Partas in this family, and it was a very lengthy description of who he is. And I know nothing about it. Apparently it comes up one at a time in Gemara too. But anyway, this other Tana Parta went over to Rabbi and said, Him Cain, if you're saying that what the guy did counts, what power did he give to Bezdin? If they made a decree, the guy didn't follow it, and what the guy did works, then the court's power doesn't really have any strength to it. The Chaza Rabbi also and Rabbi himself retracted in his position and agreed with Rishon ben Gamliel that what Bezdin says is the final law. So from this story that Rudimi is telling us, we see that about the original machlokes between Rabbi and Rishon ben Gamliel, do the Rabbanan's decree have full force to it? We see that even Rabbi Doniel himself eventually retracted in position and agreed with Rishon ben Gamliel. So I mean the halakha of Rishon ben Gamliel. So about that machlokes, even Rabbi agrees with Rishon ben Gamliel. That means the halakha is like Rishon ben Gamliel. Kerebi, the other machlokes about when you have a group of 10. Now we want to know, can you cancel out some and so the other? That must be the one that we hold like Rabbi, because in the first machlokes you have the power to cancel. Everybody holds like Rishon ben Gamliel. So when it comes to the other machlokes about 10, that must be where we hold like Rabbi, that you could cancel out one and not without the other ones being there. Rabbi Yoshia de Min Usha Savar Chalak Rabbi Chalak Rishon ben Gamliel. Rabbi Oshia from Usha also had a similar final halacha. One of these we hold like Rabbi, the original machlokes. We hold like Rishon Gamliel, and the later machlokes we hold like Rabbi. The Amar Rabbi Bar Chana told us the story, the source for this. Hamisha Sabe, there were 5 elders, Avi Kamed Rabbi Yoshia de Usha, who were in front of Rabbi Oshia from Usha. Asahu Gavri Kame, a guy came over, the Ashkele Giti al Korche, and the court forced him to give a divorce. Now, our examples, Rashi says, discuss later, there are times when we will force a husband, he has to agree. We force him to say, I want to give the get. But we pressured the husband into giving a get. And Rabbi Yoshia was worried that, okay, we pressured him to give a get, but what's he going to do next? So Amr Lahu, Rabbi Yoshia went to the witnesses who he had told to, write the get. And he said, Zilu Atmuru, go. Atmuru actually basically means go hide. Go and, lock yourself up in some cave somewhere, go hide. Vikaspulo, and write it and deliver the get. I want you to hide from the guy because I'm afraid that this husband who we had to force to give it is going to come and cancel it out. So Esau goes to Rabbi. Well, if you hold like Rabbi, that once you cancel it, it becomes canceled. Ki mitmere my have. Well, what was he solving? He tells the 2 witnesses to go hide. According to Rebbe, even though you're not supposed to cancel it in front of a court, you could. So if he's telling witnesses to hide, it sounds like he must hold like Rishon Gamliel, like we said before, that once the Rabbanan made the decree that you have to go to the witnesses themselves, that's it. And no matter what else you do, is not going to have validity to it. We add one more step though. And if you hold like Gamliel 100%, even in the other machlokas, that you are able to cancel out one, you're not able to cancel it out unless they're together. Rabbi Yoshia, why do you have to give such a complicated solution? Go and hide. Livderu ivdure. There could be a simpler solution. Go and separate. The 2 witnesses can separate the different buildings. They don't need to hide, just different buildings. And the halacha would be, according to the second opinion of Rishon Gamliel, that once you told 2 people, you need to cancel them together. And therefore, a very simple solution. If you're worried the guy's going to change his mind, force him to, direct 2 people to give a get, and then tell those 2 people to split. They'll sign it here, and we're good to go. You have no fear. So it must be that in the original machlokas we hold like Rebbe, that the get can no longer be canceled out once gave a shliach. Let's go to the shliach. And when it comes to the next machlokas, you actually hold like Rishon Gamliel that you are able to cancel out one without the other one being there. Okay. I'm going to hold there, but we have one final halacha there, and then the topic really switches on the start of the next summit. Okay, tomorrow early start though. Early start. We got Rosh Chodesh. Kind of like the Sunday morning start. It's so bad. Sunday morning, yeah.